This skill could save your life. Here's an overview of our teaching plan. Subject: how to create a friction-based fire. Title: this could save your life. Target: people who venture out into the wilderness during cold weather. Location: cold wilderness areas. Resources: your hands, sticks, a knife, a shoestring, and some dry brush. Learning goal: the learner will become proficient in the practice of friction-based fire techniques. Learning objectives: the learner will be able to make a fire by the hand-drilled method in 5 minutes or less. The learner will be able to make a fire by the bow drill method in 2 minutes or less. Applied instructional design strategy: we used the Psychomotor skill learning strategies from Smith and Reagan. We focused on recall relevant prior knowledge, process information and examples, focus attention, mnemonic, practice, and feedback. When we kick off the class, we'll start by stating our purpose. Today we're going to learn how to create a friction-based fire for the purpose of saving your life when you're out in the wilderness without other supplies. Interest and motivation: save your life. Frostbite can set in quickly. For example, in temperatures of just 5 degrees Fahrenheit with winds up to 30 miles an hour, frostbite can set in within 30 minutes. Here's a preview of what we'll learn today. In today's introductory lesson in friction-based fire, we'll learn 6 main steps. First, we'll grab our knife and we'll cut a notch into one piece of wood. We'll lay it on the ground, and where that notch is, we're going to place a leaf or a bark or something underneath that will catch the embers. Next, we're going to grab another piece of wood, a stick, a thin, long stick, and put it right in the middle of that piece of wood that's laying on the ground. We'll put a little notch in and put the stick in it, and then rub it back and forth as fast as we can until we can create embers. Once we've created embers, then we'll transfer it to a bundle of tinder, and then we'll grab that bundle and blow on it until we can create a flame. We'll take that flame and place it on the fire pit, and then we will have a fire. And that's a quick preview of what we're going to learn today.
This repetitive process takes time to learn, but as the conscious mental activity is orchestrated again and again, the user can begin to learn how to create fire from objects that are easily accessible in the wild. Using relevant prior knowledge, the friction-based fire starting is a tool that one can use no matter where they are, with or without the technology or tools they have. The most common approach that we know of is called the hand drill. This is where you take a stick between your hands as pictured to the side and you spin it while using the friction of the stick on a board to create an ember which will be transferred into tinder. Once that tinder is moved, you put that tinder onto a piece of bark and the bark will essentially start flame. There's much process information and example that goes into it, and basically by that it might not work right away. Key and essential to try and try again, because this is a long repetitive process, but once the ember is started, more than likely that process is learned, and by repetitive action you can understand how to continue doing that to achieve the desired result again and again. A more advanced manner of this continuous learning is known as the bow drill method. Just as the hand drill, this requires a spindle. However, this time you need a curved stick along with a piece of twine or rope. A shoelace works very well. As pictured to the right, you can see you make a bow essentially and spin the spindle on the stick to create a small ember again, this time using a curved item as seen there, known as the bow. A great mnemonic here to understand and for learners to grasp this is FIRE. The F stands for find tinder materials. The I is identify proper materials such as the bow, the twine, the hand at the top of the spindle. The R is where you'd rub items to create an ember. And the E is finally where you immerse the ember into tinder to create a fire. As this is much more difficult, it takes more advanced methods than the previous, and it requires far more practice. One very good way of using this psychomotor practice is required to perfect the skill is to ensure the learning and the actions are correct would be to get old wood that is not necessarily able to be burnt right away. When the user practices again and again on this old wood, they can fine-tune their method for the time when they need to get the more dry wood to ensure that they have learned the needed skills and the techniques via continuous practice and physical action.
In conclusion, we discussed 2 different ways to teach the psychomotor skill of starting fires. Ultimately, high friction is the goal for both of these methods. The hand drill method is the simplest technique. Remember, much spinning of the stick is needed to create friction. Although it may not work immediately, repetition ensures success. The bow drill is the more advanced skill. Remember FIRE, F, find tinder materials, I, identify proper materials, R, rub items to create an ember, E, immerse the ember into tinder to create the fire. With enough practice, the learner can adjust to feedback and determine the right materials and technique. When reviewing the process, the learner should mentally go over the steps and allow the body's memories to perform. If the learner continues to struggle, change the technique, equipment, or obtain more feedback, but most importantly, do not give up. Although blisters will form and it takes a lot of effort, learning to start a friction fire could save lives and is a worthwhile skill. Mastery of the skill is pretty impressive and great to demonstrate at dinner parties. Just be sure to keep it outside. Remember, keep practicing. Learners are evaluated based on the observer assessing performance and are rated on the rubrics always, often, occasionally, rarely, or never. Effectiveness. Is the spindle at an effective speed to produce correct powder consistency? Efficiency. Are correct body positions being applied? Speed in completing the task. Can the learner start a fire using the hand drill method in 5 minutes or less? Can they start a fire using the bow drill method in 2 minutes or less? Watching demonstrations can help determine prerequisite skills. Although when learners try to assess a new psychomotor performance, the ability to sense a properly performed skill is not yet recognized. Instructors can inform learners what they are doing well and specifically how to improve. Feedback should be obtained throughout the psychomotor skill building set, not just at the end. However, it can overwhelm the new learner. Giving detailed feedback is useful when the learner understands the basic concepts. Expert learners rely on feedback throughout the task. Visual feedback includes looking at the spindle powder. Is it too dusty and fine? Light brown? Adjusting the speed of the spindle and pressure should correct the powder to be black and clumping together. Auditorial feedback would be hearing the spindle make a whistling sound, indicating the spindle's drill is polished. More pressure is needed on the spindle. Proprioceptive sensations indicate to the learner if they're perfecting the skill. Indication of this would be embers form. The learner is keeping enough pressure on the spindle and using correct body positions.
Thank you for watching.